Hello there, people of YouTube. My name is Jake. This is the first video I'm making in many years. Today I'm going to be showing you how to turn a Walking Liberty silver $half into a beautiful ring like this, simply by tapping it with a hammer, drilling it out, and filing it. As you can see, the writings on the inside of the ring. But I actually did this one with a Franklin silver $half, but it's the same idea. They're the same silver content and size of coin when you start. As you can see, it's much smaller now. But I first tried this a week ago with some silver quarters. I watched a video on YouTube and started making these. But I mean, the video was not very descriptive and did not go into very much detail. And plus, it takes much more shaping and time with a $half to attain the rounded ring look that we're trying to go for here. So you can see it's not just flat, it's the shape of, say, a wedding band or a nice ring. But yeah, this will likely take about 8 hours, so don't expect it to just happen. It's very complicated and not a very efficient way of making a silver ring, but hey, if you have the time and you want a nice ring, you have a silver dollar, why not, you know? But that being said, let's get started. Okay, so first things first, you're going to want to take and make sure that you have a hammer that has a nice smooth surface. If there's any dents or bumps in it, it could mess up your coin later on and put bumps and dents in your coin. Same thing with the block of metal or anvil or whatever you're using as a hard surface underneath. You want that to be nice and smooth because the same thing could happen. But also, it's nice to have a piece of fabric or something that will take some of the impact off of the blows underneath it so it doesn't make as much noise, and it's just a lot safer for tapping. But either way, I'm going to get started now and I'll show you step by step. I can't film the whole thing because it's going to take forever, but either way, here we go. Tap it right on top. You want to hold it dead straight like this. And tap the very top. Try to do your best. Just slowly spin it like this. You want to tap it a little harder, of course, but not too hard, because if you start to rush it and tap it really hard, it's going to become uneven. You want to make sure you're keeping it nice and even the whole way through. Sometimes I like to spin it back too a little bit if I notice that I didn't hit an area hard enough. I just want to Okay, so I've made it about around twice now. I don't know if you could see it, my camera kind of sucks, but it's starting to flatten out now. Almost got all the ridges out of it, but you just want to keep tapping. This is the part that takes a very long time. Okay, so I've made it around about 5 or 6 times now, and as you can see, it's definitely starting to flatten out. If I can get it to focus, you can see that the lip of the quarter is starting to flare up, and that the letters are actually starting to bend up with it. That's what you're trying to get to happen, is you want to flare this coin out as evenly as possible. You're going to notice as you're going that you're going to get spots that are a little thinner than other spots, and that's alright, but you want to keep a good eye on it as you go, keep checking it, and hit those spots a little extra, or focus on them first and try to keep it as even as possible, pretty much. As I can see right here, I have a pretty thin area, so I'm gonna I don't know if you could see that, but I kind of evened it out pretty good right there. But I think the other side has a pretty thin area too, right there. Okay, so just keep tapping. Okay, so as you can see, I've made it around quite a few times, about 10 probably, I'm guessing. I'm doing a pretty good job, but I wanted to chime in and mention some things that have happened to me in the past that may be happening to you. Now, one way you can tell that you're getting very even, and one way to detect thin spots, is by checking the lettering. I know you can't really see on my crappy phone, but if you look at the lettering that's curling up as you bang it out, you'll be able to see if certain areas aren't as high as others, judging by the lettering to the bend or how high up the letter is. And surely enough, most of the time, if you notice it's a little low in a spot, you check the center, and that's one of the skinnier spots. So that's a good way to detect. It's really just a lot of looking at the coin too. This is why this really takes so long. It's attention to detail. But another thing that happens a lot is when you tend to tap a coin, usually you're going from one side, and you could do a pretty good job of hitting the top no matter what, but you're usually still favoring one side. And if you check the inside of the coin and start to notice that you're favoring one side too much, and it's a lot more curled in on one side than the other, you want to flip it around. So say you were hitting it with your right hand on this side, or left hand, or whatever hand you're using, and you notice that side's getting a little bit bigger, you want to turn it the other way so that it stays balanced, because it will actually even it out a little bit and bring this side back down. But those are a couple good tips. I'm going to keep tapping, and I'll chime back in when we should be doing something a little different. Alright, now, I've been tapping for a while now. I've made it around probably another 10 times, but it may take you a little longer. I'm getting pretty good at hammering and starting to go a little harder because I've gotten a lot of practice doing the last few I did. But the next things that I want to mention are, I noticed I have some little nicks in the edges of my coin right around here. If you have anything like that, previous damage, or maybe just a dent from you hitting it with the hammer accidentally on the edge, you really want to sand those out, because when you flare this out, the more you flare it, the more this stretches, and those cracks, or not cracks, those dents could turn to cracks, or just become even bigger. So really you want to try to sand those out, that way they don't spread. Okay, but the next thing I'm going to show is, since I'm at this point about this big, starting to close in on the size I want, probably want to get it a decent amount bigger, but I like to do this about 3 times throughout the tapping of the final half of it about. And the first thing I usually do is take and I tap it like this, very gently, but you want to tap it around the edges. Now this may cause it to bend outward, which you really don't want to happen, so I like to try to hit it inward like this if I can, because that'll prevent it from taking the wrong shape. But you really want to start to tap it inward at itself, because we want this ring to get a little bit thicker. If I just flattened it out, it would be really thin, so this is a step that you're going to want to do at least 2 or 3 times throughout, like I said, the last few steps. And this is going to lead into another thing you're going to want to do probably 2 or 3 times throughout the process too. Of course, you would flip it over and do the other side, but I'm going to go on and start talking about this next part. Now, you may notice that your ring is not really a circle anymore. See this big bump here and like here? They're kind of minute to see on a camera, but up close you would notice them. Now, you want this ring to remain very circular. So we want to go around and tap the top edge of it on the very edge. I like to call this edging, and this is going to begin to give the ring its shape at the same time as it's going to help stretch it. But I'm going to tap out some of those areas I was just looking at and show you what I'm talking about. Now you want to angle it a tiny bit and just not too much, not enough to really drive the edge too far, but you're going to start to purposely favor it onto this side first. And as you can see, that area that had those big bumps is starting to curve in. But you want to almost reduce this circle a little bit too. Go around and do the whole thing while hitting the spots that are a little higher, and you got to stop and look at it a lot through this process. I like to almost have my workstation up high so that when I'm hitting it, it's like eye level. That way I could see into there and tell what I'm really doing. But right now it's not that serious because we're going to stretch this ring some more and it's going to keep trying to bend out of shape. But like I said, it's good to try to keep it in shape. And then you would turn it around, and the other side may have flared out a bit from you doing that, from favoring this side. So you definitely want to tap this side now and try to even that out. And when you tap that side out, you may check the other side after and notice that flared in a few spots, so you're going to want to tap that. You may have to go back and forth a few times. It's a pretty big pain in the ass, but it's definitely necessary if you want that real ring shape. But yeah, so I'm going to do a bunch of that, and then I will show you what happens. Now, if you did those last 2 parts right, you should notice that right around the edges, it's a little bit thicker than it was before. And it's going to be flat there and may get a sharp edge on it, but don't worry about that for now. Like I said, we're just easing it into getting used to being in the shape it's in, so we don't have to force it all at once at the end. But yeah, if you did that part right, you should be able to see that evenly all around. If there's spots that are still thinner than the other spots, you could just go back and tap those, try to get it as even as possible so it looks nice. And if you did the other part right, and curled both sides in decently, see how I got them both to curl, and it took me a few times around each side to balance it out, because it kept wanting to open on the other side. But if you did that right, there should almost be a slight hump to it now in the middle. And now we're going to go right back to the first step and just tap that right out. So you want to just start flattening it back out again. You may lose some of the shape we were just trying to gain. If you want to go back and try to tap some bad spots into place while you're going around it a couple more times to get it thicker, you can, but I mean, like I said, we're gonna go back and fix it the way we just did a couple more times throughout this, so it'll be alright.